Long ago, in the quiet West African village of Umaya, people lived simply, bound by tradition, family, and faith. Their days rose with the sun and ended with prayers to the heavens. Life was hard but honest, and they held tightly to their hope. Hope that one day, God would send someone to ease their burdens. If you love powerful African folk tales like this, hit the like button for more gripping stories every week. That hope took shape when a new pastor arrived, Pastor Charles. He came like a whisper in the wind, humble yet commanding, dressed in white and carrying only a Bible and a radiant smile. From the very first Sunday, the villagers were captivated. He didn't preach like the others. His voice stirred something deep inside them, something electric, something divine. Miracles followed him. A barren woman conceived. A blind boy saw. Rain fell after a 3-month drought. But what the villagers didn't see, what they couldn't see, was the shadow behind the miracles. The night before his first Sunday service, deep in the forest, Pastor Charles had made a promise, one that echoed not in church halls, but in the hollow holes of ancient spirits. A pact sealed not with holy water, but blood. And every Christmas Eve, the death would come due. The villagers of Umaya slept peacefully, wrapped in dreams and prayers. But deep within the thick forest that bordered their land, a place feared even by hunters, Pastor Charles stood barefoot before something ancient. The trees around him whispered. The air trembled. Before him rose a towering shrine carved from black stone, pulsing with a red glow. No one in the village knew it existed. No one dared come this far. But Charles had been led here, not by God, but by something older, something darker. Speak your desire, a voice hissed from the shadows. It wasn't human. It slithered into his mind like smoke. I want power, Charles whispered. Power to heal. Power to lead. Power that no man can question. And what will you offer in return? The voice asked. He hesitated, then nodded. Whatever it takes. The ground opened, and from its depths rose a spirit, half man, half shadow, its eyes glowing like coals. It placed a blood-stained urn in Charles' hands. Every year, on the eve of the child's birth, you will give me one soul, the spirit said. Willing or not, young or old, it must be done. Refuse, and all you've gained will rot. Charles felt a surge rush through him. His eyes widened. The forest lit up for a moment, and then it was still. When he returned to the village the next morning, no one saw the horn he hid beneath his cloak. No one saw the change in his eyes. All they saw was their miracle worker, the man who would save them. But the forest spirit had begun to count the days, and Christmas Eve was coming. The Sunday after Pastor Charles returned from the forest, the church overflowed. People traveled from neighboring villages just to hear him speak. They said there was something different about him now, something magnetic. His voice echoed with a strange calm, as though it came from somewhere far beyond the pulpit. That morning, Mama Nkechi came forward, Her daughter had been born mute. 7 years, not a single word. Pastor Charles looked at the girl, then at the crowd. "If your faith is strong," he said slowly, "then your child will speak." He laid his hand gently on the girl's forehead. The church fell silent. Then the child screamed. "Mama!" She cried, eyes wide, voice clear as day. "Mama, I'm scared." The crowd gasped. Women fell to their knees, shouting praises. That week, a boy with a twisted leg walked for the first time. The church swelled with gifts and with fear, because in the next village over, a young man had vanished. His mother said she had seen him the night before, walking toward the forest. Whispers began, quiet as wind. What price do miracles demand? But no one asked Charles directly. Not yet. Instead, they knelt before him, prayed with him, and begged for blessings. And all the while, Pastor Charles kept one eye on the calendar. Christmas Eve was near. Janet was only 17, but she was the kind of girl people called old in the spirit. The night the mute girl spoke, Janet's dreamed of fireflies forming a cross in the sky. But behind the glowing cross was something else, something darker, slithering just out of view. Her bed sheets were soaked in sweat, and her window was wide open. She lived with her grandmother, Mama Oduak, a woman who never trusted smooth-talking men in white suits. When Janet told her about the dream, the old woman narrowed her eyes and muttered, "Not all light is holy." One night, Janet dreamed again. She saw Pastor Charles standing in the forest, whispering to something tall and faceless. In his hands was a lantern, and inside the lantern was a screaming child, pounding against the glass. When she told Mama Oduak, the old woman sighed and said, "Child, you've seen the truth. Now you must choose what to do with it." Janet began writing down the names of those who vanished, discreetly, carefully, in the back of an old school notebook. One name in particular troubled her: Efe, the girl with the limp who used to sweep the church compound. She had once told Janet that Pastor Charles asked her to stay after service for special prayers. No one had seen her since. She began noticing the signs. A strange fog that sometimes hovered near the church at night. Flashes of red lights behind the stained glass windows. Then came the scream. It was a Tuesday, midnight. Janet had just finished washing her feet before bed when she heard it. Sharp, cut short, and buried in the wind. She ran to the window. The church doors were wide open, though no service was scheduled. Inside, she saw him, Charles, kneeling, blood on his hands, smiling. Behind him, a shadow moved, a shape too large to be human, too still to be a breeze. Janet ducked. Her heart pounded like a drum in a war parade. She knew then. Whatever Pastor Charles had become, it was no longer a man of God. She returned to the church grounds later that afternoon, pretending to help clean the altar like she used to before her mother passed. She moved slowly, scanning every corner. Everything looked normal, too normal. Polished wood, fresh flowers, the faint scent of anointing oil. But when she stepped behind the pulpit, her foot caught something. She bent down and brushed aside the carpet. A small trapdoor. It wasn't part of the original design. had helped clean this church since she was 10. This door was new and hidden for a reason. She reached for the handle, but just then, a voice boomed behind her. "What are you doing there?" It was Brother Nathan, Pastor Charles' closest assistant. His tone was unusually sharp. His eyes were bloodshot. Janet smiled weakly. "I was looking for the broom." He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared at her. "There is nothing down there but pipes and dirt," he said flatly. "Don't ever go near it again." That night, Janet couldn't sleep. She sat with her notebook, flipping back to the list of the missing. She circled Effe's name, then wrote under it in trembling letters. Did she go through the trap door? She didn't know what was beneath the pulpit. But whatever it was hungry. Janet stepped behind the pulpit and pulled back the carpet. There it was again, the trap door. She wrapped her finger around the iron handle and pulled. It groaned like something ancient being disturbed. A wave of rot hit her nostrils. The stairs led into darkness. She descended. At the end of the corridor was a wooden door, and behind it, whispers. Janet pressed her ear to the door. "The girl is getting close," someone said. "She has the bloodline." Another voice hissed. It was Pastor Charles. Janet stumbled backward, her lantern nearly falling from her hand. She turned and fled up the stairs, pushing the trapdoor shut behind her. She ran out of the church, not stopping until she was home. That night, she realized the truth wasn't just buried beneath the church. She was next. The next morning, she went to the edge of the village, to the one place no one liked to talk about, the home of Mama Nene, the half-blind prophetess who hadn't stepped into the church in over 20 years. "You saw it, didn't you?" the old woman said before Janet could speak. "The door beneath the altar." Janet froze. "How did you?" "The dead talk, child," Mama Nene whispered. "There's a covenant sealed in blood beneath that church," Mama Nene began. "Many years ago, Charles was a desperate man. He came to me pretending to seek healing. But what he really wanted was power. When I refused to help, he went into the forest and met something else. Something that doesn't give gifts, it trades." Janet felt her throat dry. And what did he trade? A soul. Every Christmas Eve, one soul in exchange for power, prosperity, miracles. But this year, something is different. The spirit wants more. And you, Janet, you carry a bloodline that can end it. Janet stared. "Me?" Mama Nene nodded. "You are the last of your grandmother's line. She was a priestess, a light bearer. That's why Charles fears you." Janet's voice broke. "What do I do?" The prophetess leaned forward, her face grim. "You must expose him before the next sacrifice, or the next body offered to the altar will be yours." Should Janet confront Pastor Charles or run? What would you do? Let us know in the comments, because part 2 is coming soon.